Hello gamers, and welcome to another fresh from the press replay in an insanely fucking horseshit ship. Uh, it being the Petro, interestingly enough. Well, I actually played Petro in randoms because I was so tilted by matchmaking and teams that Bison, or when Bison hopped on yesterday, he just whooped out his Nakimov and we played Petro Nakimov division. Yeah, I see you judging us for playing this shit. Um, Questionable if the player base deserves better than this though. But yeah, we can go into a ranting spree about Shitro and it being probably one of the dumbest cruisers in the game currently. By far one of the dumbest ships for sure. So, why exactly is this division completely horseshit? Well, obviously your carrier allows you to get intentional spotting whenever you want, wherever you want. Nakamov is insanely strong at creating an instant crossfire, which obviously benefits ships like Petro a lot, since I cannot only get into position very well due to my concealment, but my AP also smashes people. So if the highest alpha torp drop comes in from another angle and the enemy ship the enemy ship either has to choose to take, for example, Nakamov torps, which is probably the highest alpha strike on a carrier in the game currently. It's like around 30k if he hits all. Depends on the ship, obviously, torp belt. But there are also the skip bombers that can just come in from the side. So in general, just a disgusting and toxic combination of two ships. And I'm also running it with defensive fire here, obviously, because it's a carrier division. But in general, I like defensive fire on my cruisers a lot, specifically because I hate being outplayed by stupid and bad carrier players. So defensive fire helps there a bit. And on radar cruisers like Petro, um, since you have a radar, DDs are not that big of a problem. Obviously Petro having a very low radar duration. Um, thank God for that. I mean, God knows how broken that ship would be with Moscow radar duration. But yeah, thankfully Wargaming doesn't make us suffer in this kind of way. Well, so why is Petro so insanely horseshit? Well, it's most likely due to the armor scheme. It's insanely low in the water, as everyone knows. The penetration power is off the charts for the gun caliber. The only thing that kind of limits it is range dispersion, since it has a weird formula where the further the enemy is away, the worse your dispersion gets, and the closer you are, the more laser accurate the guns become. Also, Petro, it doesn't count as a heavy cruiser like Stalin, so you can still get full pens on DDs, which is kind of disgusting. Small little detail that lots of players might not understand. The fatter and slower the enemy DD is, and the more space the DD offers to arm your AP, or the more angle the DD gives you, it's actually really nice to shoot AP. Like Gearing, Haaland, Smaland, Ragnar, Harugumo. You can get full pens a lot, and you might actually 8 to 10k DDs in one salvo, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. That's kind of the level of the old Stalingrad murdering Khabarovsk at range. You just had to pretty much hit 3 or 4 shells, and if 2 or 3 of them armed, it was obviously already GG for that cap since he took a 10k hit. Petro can still kind of do it. It's also why I tell people that shooting AP at a Ragnar and Petro is actually more reliable or better in general. You might just end up with 3 full pens, which is 6k. AP tends to be better in most scenarios. So, in my opinion, Petro is one of the most frustrating ships to play against and the most disgusting ship to deal with. And it's broken specifically because you don't have to be the sharpest tool in the shed to understand, or to have game impact in that ship pretty much. To have insane game impact in that ship. Petro is less broken or has less impact in the hands of a good player than ships like Ragnar or, for example, a CV. There's less difference between a good player and a mediocre one, for example, just because the ship, while being insanely stupid overall, there are more situations where you can't get use out of your ship like you could in another. For example, as I said, Ragnar. Like if you have a very high, if you're a very high skilled player and you play Ragnar, you're useful in every fucking situation. While whereas Petro, you might get stuck on a rock and then suddenly you're at the mercy of your own team to work around you. But in general, it's more frustrating and more broken in the sense that even a bad player can just go to any rock, pretty much any rock, since the ship is just so incredibly tanky that most rocks work for it, and then you just sit there. And you existing is a problem. That's pretty much it. You existing on whatever fucking rock it is a problem for the enemy team. Specifically when you play Hydra and Radar. You're a spotting platform with insane AP that ensures that the enemy can't turn out or show broadside or give angle. And you're sitting there. And probably the most tanky cruiser in the game. Maybe Napoli's competing with that. Napoli has, in general, kind of, in my opinion, a better armor scheme. Especially since nose and stern are even smaller in Napoli. And it has even less superstructure, kinda. And better concealment, obviously. But then again, it lacks, for example, like radar or the insane penetration angles. Which brings us to the next thing. I played Petro yesterday, and the ship citadels cruises at angles I have never seen before. Sometimes in angles where not even a Starling rod might be able to punch through, in my opinion. It's just like, it kind of confuses me how you could create a cruiser with smaller gun caliber than, for example, some battleships, but you penetrate way more than battleships with like 100, 150 millimeter more gun caliber. Just because your penetration angles pretty much make you do overmatch stuff. Look at this, by the way. Nice, interesting 2 overpens, 3 ricochets for 5.6k. Wargaming definitely working on the game and the game mechanics that they work as intended. I have no clue how 2 overpens equate to 5.6k, but hey, whatever. So what is happening in this game? I mean, we had pretty much no teammates going towards A. The Z was a bit chimpy. He wanted me to sit on the other rock and pretty much kill myself and expose myself to everyone, but I just said, nah, fuck it. There's no one here, but that is not a problem. I just give my team and my carrier more time by going into the one-line rock, and I'm just a problem here. The enemy team has to deal with me, but how do they deal with me? They have to pretty much come here and kill themselves, or at least 1 or 2 ships have to kill themselves to get me out of this rock. I'm just sitting here full HP, not picking anyone, but they can't push. They can't push through our base, neither can they go into the corner, so they're pretty much corralled in the spot where they currently are, and the moment they move out, they expose themselves to the carrier, my own team, or even myself. As you will see, the Quidfus is making a move for our carrier. I will just reverse and shoot his flat broadside. It's that simple. You're on a rock and you're a problem. And that's why the game impact of this ship is off the charts even for shit players. Because your tankiness allows you to pretty much provide your team with area control, vision control, and you just in general hold flanks by existing. So I would much rather see, honestly, much rather see ships like Ragnar that are not completely idiot proof and can be countered by a lot of stuff, or a lot more than Petro, and that have a high skill ceiling, or a higher skill ceiling. I'm not saying that Ragnar is completely that you have to be a super unicum to play Ragnar, for example. No, you definitely don't. You still get use out of it if you play it as a mediocre player. But in general, there's little difference between a Blunicum or even a, let's say, greenish, yellowish player sitting on that rock in the Petro, or me. The only thing I might do better is maybe a bit... I'm a bit better at aiming, or I realize opportunities like this one a bit earlier, like reversing here because the Kurfürst has his guns not turned for me, so I can just reverse out and clap him for 2 salvos, for example. In general, there's not much difference. Maybe the difference comes later on when I move out of the rock. Then obviously the moment you have to move with the Petro, definitely see interesting discrepancies between good players and bad players, because a good player definitely understands the tankiness and the angles of the ship better, so you can be an insanely stupid menace even while pushing and exposing some angle on your broadside, but it's in general very hard to get punished in that ship. Pretty much every good player hates that ship broadside, because you see it broadside and you think you might do damage to it, but it's an insanely RNG based engagement. If a Petro gets flat broadside, also in competitive, like in CBs, or yeah, specifically CBs, you end up sometimes with like 6-7 overpens on his broadside and without a single sit or full pen. By the way, here you can see that Yamato was camping. I mean, it's obviously it's an ARP Yamato, it's not the best player. But Bison just pretty much said, well, he's bow into me, let me make him turn. And what does he do? Yeah, well, he just comes with his torpedoes. The Yamato turns into the torpedoes, turns flat broadside in me because I was still unspotted behind the rock, even though I was still already gathering full speed, coming out, going for his cheek the entire time. And yeah, well, look at this, Petro. Petro just smashes a fucking battleship at 4-5 kilometers on the cheek, no problem, no questions asked. I citadelled the Thunder on 13 km earlier in a cruiser. The only other cruiser that might be able to do it was probably Stalin. Moskva can't do it. I mean, all the other cruisers are out of the contest or debate anyway. Like, you're not gonna do it with Henri, Des Moines, Zhao, Venezia. None of those can do it. They can't even do it at 2 kilometers, while Petro can do it at like 13. There's also an interesting engagement between Petro and Montes and Ohio's. You can go into a training battle and test it out yourself if you want. You will citadel Monty and Ohio decently often below 10 km, and you will also citadel them occasionally at like below 5 km. But what's really interesting about that, you're not really citadeling them at between 10 and like 16 kilometers, but then if you go max range, for example 17 to 18 kilometers, you get a lot of fucking sits on Ohio and Monty. I have no clue why that is. Look at this salvo, by the way. Nice little flat ass. What was it, 25k? And just Shitro things. Then again, I haven't been HE spammed, so my A is fully intact. I mean, the carrier player is completely garbage. He's not a good player. But in general, it doesn't matter. I'm full HP. I have 4 heals ready. This carrier is never going to kill me with defensive fire ready. It doesn't even matter what carrier it is. There's no more crossfire from the enemy team, so nothing happens. So what was this gameplay? Well, I went to a rock. Enemy team couldn't really push past me, or they ignored me since they realized, well, no, they're not really interested at going dark or going to the one line and like rush me out of the rock. They also had barely any ships that could have done it reliably. There wasn't, for example, a stealthy little full HP Kleber that could have rushed me. That would have been a problem. Something like that would have been there. Actually balancing out the Petro by just being too fast and having too many torps, so you could just rush me out. So they just ignored me. They figured, nah, I don't want to fuck with the Petro on the one line, and I could just go for each ship 1 versus 1 and murder them one after another, and then the Yamato was the only one left, and Bison made him turn and he died as well. Well, ship gets radar, Minotaur in the middle. He's not flat broadside here for 2 shots. Look at this, it's not broadside, doesn't matter, you still smash him. That was like probably even enough angle for Moskva to citadel it, which doesn't get improved penetration angles, but look at this, just like it's a walk in the park with Petro, honestly. The ship is disgustingly easy to play. I barely play it in randoms anymore. I played it a bit when it was released. A bit, kind of a lot, like probably 80-90 games. And now I'm only occasionally pulling it out when I'm really, really frustrated, or when I'm divvying up with a carrier because we're both really frustrated. Ship doesn't care. It's like something like a Haaland. It's kind of comparable on the DD spectrum. Petro for the cruisers, probably Conqueror or Thunderer for the BBs. It's just in its class, it's probably the easiest and the most relaxing ship to play because you don't have to care about a lot. You just go somewhere and you do stuff. Haaland has AA against the carriers. You can just torp. It has heals, so even if it gets caught, it can heal up afterwards. You can just stay out of range, since your torps have insane range. You can even stay out of 12 km radar range, for example, with Haaland. You don't have to care. You don't have to think. Petro is kind of the same. You just go somewhere and you do stuff. Nothing spectacular. But yeah, it's like shut-off brain ship. And Thunder and Conqueror obviously would be the same for the battleships. Braindead, range AG spammers with insane damage potential. Well, is there anything else I forgot about Petro? Well, you have the armor scheme, you have the guns. Yeah, you have the concealment as well. They nerfed the concealment twice or 3 times now. It's still complete horseshit. Specifically now that I have no clue why it happens now, but the Petro, or now that the game has this insane spawning delay between you actually being visible but already being spotted, like there's an insane spawning delay between or in the engagement of spotting someone. So the 12.4 km detection is, you can kind of treat it like stealth radar. If you get spotted and the DD runs into you and you press your radar, he probably only sees you, actually sees you, when it's already too late and he's in your radar range. The radar is thankfully balanced duration wise, which means you can't instantaneously smash the DD in one go. Might still happen though if your teammates are around you and can murder him as well. But you at least get information. That's what I mean with, like, you go to a cruiser, you're insanely tanky, you block off the enemy, but you also bring 12k vision control. So you can kind of get a glimpse of the enemy's DD's movement from time to time. Well, that's the game. Let's hop into the end screens. Was kind of a boring game. I mean, you saw me sit on a rock for half of it, and then I just ran it down because there was nothing else to care about. We ended up with 9 kills. That was really lucky. Could have been 10 with the Des Moines. Bison intentionally didn't kill certain ships. For example, the Haaland in the end. For me to get a higher amount of kills. I have a 1 base cap. I have 1 cap contest. I have a few plane kills. And the most interesting thing probably is the 21 sits. There are definitely games out there with more citadels, but the stupidity of this game, together with the Nag just mauling over the enemy team. Our team wasn't even that good, but Nakimov and Petro together are just disgustingly stupid and broken. So yeah, as you could imagine, the base XP is insanely high, 3.87k. Plane kills, DD damage, caps and kills. Kills also work as a multiplier together with the caps, so since I have a decent amount of damage, 200, what was it? 247. Since I have a decent amount of damage, the kills and caps multiply that a lot, and you can see it in the base XP. Also the plane kills help out. What did I shoot? Well, I got the shit bag, the Audacious, not the, let's say, most valuable prize in terms of shit bags. I would have much rather fucked the Nakamov, but yeah. I mean, you take what you get. I guess it's Audacious is fine. It's still a tier 10 carry, and I fucked him pretty good. So we have the RP Amato. He died really quick. He went from full HP to 0 in 1 Nag drop and 4 Petro salvos, I think. Just dead. Moskva was a paid actor. Nothing more to say there. Haaland in the end. Yeah, well, bit of 2 salvos on the Kurfürst for 24k are also kind of interesting. Because if you count, even though they nerfed the reload, the duration of both salvos, like the reload time added on top of each other, granting me 24k, pretty much means that's more damage than most battleships get in the same time. Like if you play a 30-second battleship reload, for example Monty with dispersion mod, you probably get between 20 and 30k, let's say 25 on average in that salvo as well, but you take longer to reload. So Petro just shoots twice and gets 24k on a flat broadside GK. GK obviously a bit better protected. I can't citadel him. Any other battleship there, and I could have maybe even quadruple sitted him, like put 6 sits into him in 1 salvo, whatever. It's insanely stupid. Whenever you go flat broadside to a Petro at under 10 km, you definitely run the risk of eating some massive 30 to 40k hit, and then you have to remember who reloads in what, like 13-14 seconds now. I actually have no idea where the Petro reload is now after the bunch of nerfs they put onto the ship. Oh wait, yeah, well, we can look it up now because we're going over the captain real quick. The cute little Shitro captain. I have to recall the commander, 1 second. So, well, obviously I run Kuzi on it. You should too. Just put fucking Kuznetsov on it. It's even more disgusting. Kuznetsov and Survivability Expert. You get probably the most tanky cruiser to even more ridiculous levels of tankiness. You get way more out of the survivability, honestly, than any damage increase or whatever, or utility increase. Just make it more tanky than it already is, because that's the main strength of it. The little submarine that it is as well. Well, yeah, that's the normal cruiser spec. Whatever cruiser I play that is heavy or super, like a battle cruiser or heavy cruiser, Des Moines or something, is always this build. It's probably the most optimal one. Go turret traverse, ammo switch, base, priority target. There's no other skill here. Also, PT is probably the best skill of the 2 pointers on cruisers. You want to know when people like focus you or aim at you. You have adrenaline rush, superintendent, then survivability expert. I love to run it on cruisers, but on Petro I think there is little debate about either survivability expert or, for example, heavy IP. You always take survivability expert. The ship's just it's ridiculous. It's pretty much tankier than, or it is definitely tankier than certain battleships, but it's tankier than most battleships as well. If you get tier 8 to 9 matchmaking, you pretty much are the battleship. It's kind of funny if you think about it. Yeah, concealment and top grade gunner. You don't get as much use out of top grade gunner in Shitro since the concealment is actually good. It's a bit better on Stalin and Moskva, but there's legit no other skill. Fuck RPF on that ship, honestly. Fuck RPF on pretty much every cruiser apart from radar minnow. You have no ensured way of actually hunting the DD. Your radar duration is too low. For example, on Stalin on Moskva, your spotting range and your radar range have a massive gap, so it's pointless. And on Shitro, your radar duration is garbage. So why would you take that? I'd rather take the 8% reload any day of the week on pretty much every cruiser when I've actually push in, I have 8% more DPM. So what's the reload now? I run reload mod. Oh, it's actually still 12.3. They nerfed it twice or 3 times by half a second. Kinda interesting. They also nerfed the concealment twice, I think. Now it's 12.4. When it was released, it had stealth radar. Then they nerfed it to 12.1, 12.2 or something. Then to 12.4 now, I think. I don't keep track of it. The nerfs are way too minor to make this ship or change up the gameplay around this ship. The ship is an unkillable 12 kilometer vision control ship that you can just shove on an island and instantly creates a crossfire. So that's also what you saw in COTS, for example, where they banned it out of it. They had 7 Petros in some games. You can just shove a Petro everywhere and the enemy is pretty much stuck where they are. They can't push in. The moment they push in into the improved pen angles and the penetration of a Petro, there's going to be 1 out of the 7 Petros pretty much on your broadside and smashing you. So yeah, and you can pretty much kill none of them because they will just hug island or reverse behind an island. That's it. You also can't really reliably outspot them with a DD, as we said, with the 12.4. And back when they could play it in COTS, the concealment was even better. I think it was even stealth radar. But even with 12.4, you can't really reliably outspot it. Interestingly enough, Ragnar can definitely win a 1 versus 1 against the Petro. The Petro can only reliably win that engagement if he loads AP and gets nice RNG salvos where he hits like 6, 7, 8k pens more than once. Then the Petro definitely gets the upper hand real soon, and the Ragnar has shit fire RNG. But in general, Ragnar is a very, very reliable counter to it. Not gonna lie, because you can spot it and you can reliably hit all your shells, burn them down, and you pen the S and nose, which is actually kind of huge on it. That's why I think Napoli might be even, or might have a even better armor scheme. But then again, Napoli actually gets sit when it turns broadside, since the broadside is massive and this shit here is pretty much underwater. It fucking Shitro things. It has an icebreaker. Obviously, people know that Russian ships by now have an icebreaker. I mean, funny thing by the way, the light cruiser Nevsky also has an icebreaker. I kind of think that's ridiculous. You can push a nose in a Nevsky and you can't get nose sit in it. It's kind of funny. Kind of like it. The balance reasons in Wargaming headquarter, where they put an icebreaker on every Russian ship in game. Even though the Moskva icebreaker doesn't really work these days, 100% anymore. You can get sit through the nose. I don't know how exactly it works or what is the reason. But then again, I also get acid in a Des Moines by a Borg because of internal bouncing. So, or as you just saw, you have two overpens for 5.6k damage. I don't know, like there are definitely some wicked things going on in World of Warships, and the Shitro is in the game since a while, and they still haven't figured out how to make this ship uh, a tiny touch more balanced, let's say. For example, actually enhance the concealment to a level that you can reliably outspot it. 13.5, for example, would be a good start. That wouldn't even be too harsh, not at all. And maybe, I don't know, probably maybe nerf the reload even more. But the concealment is one of the biggest issues, so just fucking nerf it finally. 12.4 is just a disgusting number for this ship. Well, anyway, this is it for Shitro. It was a disgusting game. Uh, I guess I can't judge people anymore for playing stupid division since Bison and me did it as well. But yeah, weekend gaming is kinda draining everyone's patience. So yeah, please don't be too harsh when you judge me for that div. But that's it for me. That's it for Shitro. And let's see what garbage ass, broken ship, or insanely useless ship we have next in store. But yeah, anyways, gamers. Have a nice gaming weekend. Don't game too much, and see you in the next video.